to just welcome you to another episode today. We're joined by a very special guest. Today, Asanda will tell us about who this guest is.
Hi, thank you, David. So today we have a name that is household within the London Muslim community. He is co-founder of the GardensOfPeace, the largest dedicated Muslim cemetery in Europe, which, by the way, has a capacity of 10,000 graves and burials, which are all in accordance with the Islamic Sharia. Our next guest is known for his involvement in Muslim bereavement support services. However, his passions extend well beyond his immediate community of East London. He is a successful businessman within his own right and currently involved in various charities. He's chair of the National Burial Council, member of the Burial Cremation Advisory Group at the Ministry of Justice. He's a trustee of the Big Issue Invest and has been actively involved with community work in East London for at least 15 years. He's a member of the Advisory Group on Counter-Terrorism at Scotland Yard, chair of the Redbridge Faith Forum. And so it's no surprise, given all of this, that also Mr. Omer was awarded the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire in 2020 in recognition to his contribution and services to the British Muslim community during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is an absolute privilege to have you here today, and thank you for joining us.
In reality, my main purpose is that I really do work very, very closely on the issues about end of life, death, and burials. So that's my primary focus. And just to give you a bit of background, GardensOfPeace is the largest dedicated Muslim cemetery in the country. And contrary to what we had done in the introduction, it was 10,000 graves was for the first site. We are working on the second site, which also has been filled to about 9,000. It's got a capacity of about 10,000 as well. So that also is almost full. And we've got one more site, which will be upstream, perhaps by about June or July this year. So it is a very, very busy cemetery. From a London perspective, we bury approximately 50% of all the Muslims who sadly pass away. End up in our cemetery, unfortunately. So that's what we do. So my primary function is really to ensure that the stakeholders, and by that I mean all the hospitals, all the coroners, all the registrars, the bereavement services, all of them are aware of what the Muslim perspective should be when somebody sadly passes away or at end of life. So that's really been the main reason why I've been really involved. So that would also then mean that from a national perspective, I would have to sit on the various government organizations which deal with this particular sector. On top of it, there is a new, as I'm sure you're all aware of it, there is a new death certification program going to be rolled out in September. From a statutory perspective, that means that there are new medical examiners being trained, as well as medical examiner officers. So I'm also involved in training all the medical examiners as well as the medical examiner officer from a faith perspective. So it's all about making people aware, making them more aware of what the requirements would be from a Muslim perspective, so that they are able to provide a better service to the patients and the families who sadly go through this particular trauma. So that's the main issue, and that's the main focus for myself. In addition to that, obviously, from a wider perspective, I do have interest in that. One of the things which was not mentioned, I also chair a secondary school, one of the largest in Redbridge, 1,900 children. And I've been the chair for a very long time. So my passion also is education. I think that every child, no matter of what the circumstances are, should have the same opportunities so that we can ensure that every child we can try and ensure that they have whatever knowledge they have, so that we can bring the best out, so we give everybody an equal chance in life. So that is something which is also I'm very passionate about. And also I'm very passionate about community cohesion. I always believe that for us to survive in this society, we have to respect each other. And sadly, one of the things which I find very, very upsetting is that in this day and age, we have lost respect for each other. And this is something which I really do not really like. And my goal has always been is that why can we not respect each other? Why can we not live together side by side? Why do we have to focus on differences? Why don't we focus on commonalities? Remember, death what we are talking about, right? It happens to everyone. Grief is grief. Grief does not know religion. Grief does not know culture. Grief does not know. So we should be able to understand when a person has grief, yes, how you handle that grief is a different element. But everybody faces grief. And this is something which is why I spend a lot of time to try and ensure that we try and have a cohesive society, but at the same time, my own concern is that how can we make bereaved people a bit more easy and comfort? How can we comfort them when they are at the most vulnerable? And that's what I would like to also do. I think that's enough.
It sounds like your calendar is so full. So we're even more grateful that you made the time for us today. You mentioned a lot of things actually I want to touch upon. The first of which I wanted to touch upon was you said you essentially want to educate people on the Muslim perspective on death. To our listeners, could you explain that to them? What exactly are the Muslim perspectives on what's required around death or death?
If I just run through it. From a Muslim perspective, death is not a taboo subject. It's mentioned in our books that every soul shall test death. What is not certain is the time of death, place, and where. So therefore, death is something which we are taught from a very early age to recognize. Life and death is one of the natural processes of life. And therefore, we are not shy from discussing about death, even at a young age. And that is something which we always teach even young people to make sure that they are able to understand that they also have a life limiting, and we only have a short life in this world. And if you come to our cemetery, one of the things we've done is we've really created a very ambient setting with lots of trees and everything like a park. Why? Because even we have children coming in, let them understand in their own manner. They're not a frightening place. I think in the past, what used to happen, people were frightened of cemeteries. Oh, I don't want to go that. What we want to do is encourage people to come to the cemeteries. Why? Because they can see themselves. It's a natural process. They'll be walking around like a nice park. They will be seeing their headstone which says 1 year, 6 years, 21 years. So that gives them a perspective so that they also start to understand that, our life here is short. So this is from a Muslim perspective. There are 5 stages from a Muslim perspective. First and foremost, we also believe that the body has been given to you by God in trust, and therefore you should not desecrate it in any manner. This is why we always believe, from a Muslim perspective, and very much like our Jewish counterparts, that we don't believe in post-mortem. Post-mortem is something which we've always said that we cannot dissect somebody else because it's not your body, and we should not touch it because it's sacrosanct. However, we also recognize, just like the Jewish community as well, that if you are in a country where the legal requirement is to establish the cause of death, and if that means that the only way you can do it is through a post-mortem, then we've been permitted to do so. However, what we do request, and what we have done to the chief coroner, and he's been very kind enough to give guidance, that where there is a possibility, can they please ensure that you are given an option to do a non-invasive, which is why we very much welcome non-invasive postmortems, because that is something which we really believe very much is extremely important for families. And I don't care whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim. This is something which every family member would not want to see their loved ones cut up. And it's just not right, really. I mean, that is why we also advocate that, they should have, as a first choice, as a default position, anybody who requires a postmortem should have a scan first. And thereafter, if there's no determination, then they can go to the second part of it. That's what we do believe in it. The other aspect of it, we believe that the Muslims should be buried as quickly as possible. And I'm sure if you must have heard the 24 hours mentioned by everybody concerned, both us and the Jewish community. Well, let me tell you first that there is no 24 hours mentioned in my books, neither is it mentioned in the Jewish books. What it says in both our books is that you bury somebody as quickly as possible. And that means by determining that if you can bury somebody within 20 minutes, bury them. So it's not a question, but what they try to say the 24 hours is at least try and watch place that we can at least bury somebody on the same day. And that's where the 24 hours come in. I'm from Africa. I was born in Zambia. And in our country, and Zambia, when I was born there, if you die at about 10 o'clock now, 10, 11, I could literally be buried in the ground by 12, 11. Because they don't worry about the paperwork. Paperwork comes tomorrow or the day after. Same happens in India and other places because there is no a legal requirement, but it's not adhered to as much as it should be. So therefore, the 24 hours is something which is just as a guidance. But if you can bury somebody before 24 hours, you should do so. And given that what the guidance have been and where the support we have received from registrars, hospitals, and they are becoming more and more aware of our requirements, and we have managed to bury people within 24 hours. It's not a problem we have if everybody works together. So therefore, the issue is, why do we rush to bury our people as quickly as possible? Is it because we don't love them? We hate them, that we want to get rid of them as quickly as possible? No. The reason why we bury somebody as quickly as possible is because we believe if a person has been a good person, let us rush them to the grave so that they can start to get the recompense of all the good deeds and in their lifetime. Obviously, it also happens that, you would ask me the question, well, what if you've been a bad person like me? Do I hold you back? No. We believe God is very, very merciful. But the principle is that's the reason why we bury somebody as quickly as possible. The issue we also have from an educational perspective is that it's not a question of that once you write the medical cause of death and you get a burial order, everything is hunky-dory, we can go and bury immediately. No, there are 5 stages. So as soon as we get the paperwork and we have the deceased in our hand, we first have to give them a ritual wash, because that's a requirement, it's compulsory requirement. So therefore, we wash somebody first. Thereafter, we need to shroud them to make sure that we cover their modesty. Third, after that, we have to pray a final prayer, which is an obligatory prayer in congregation. The fourth one there is most of these prayers are done in mosque in this country because of the weather. From there, it's transported to the cemetery, and the 5th process is the actual burial. So you can imagine that the timing after you get the paperwork, also it's crucial that all these stages also are taken into account. Why do you need to wash a person? Because we believe that when somebody passes away in a hospital at home, they may not be clean or anything like that. We need to cleanse them. So we are saying that let us send the body back to its maker in as clean position as possible. And we also signify that, why do we only have a shroud? Why don't we dress people up? Because our concept is that you came in this world with nothing, you go back with nothing. And the shroud is only there to cover your modesty. So that's what we really believe in. We also believe in that, unlike other faiths as well, we believe in that family members should participate in the actual wash. There will always be people who guide you, but we also believe that family members should be encouraged wherever possible to take part of it. And why do we believe in that? One, there is a lot of reward from our scriptures. Whoever participates will get a lot of reward for it. But we believe that from even our experience, that if a family member participates in the actual wash, it's one way of getting closure. They're now seeing for themselves that their loved ones has passed away, and they're actually giving them the actual wash. Why also do we encourage family members? Because just for example, I'm not saying it happens. For example, if you are washing your mother, Asanda, or David, you're washing your dad, okay? And if he could see, he or she would probably be saying to themselves, all my life, I did everything for my daughter. I did everything for my son. I bathed them. I looked after them. I cleansed after them. Today, when I cannot wash for myself, at least I have the knowledge of knowing that my daughter is washing me or my son is washing me rather than anybody else. Can you imagine how proud a mother or father would be if they were able to do that? And also at the same time, you as a child, you would also say to yourself, my mom and my dad did so much for me. It's the least I can do in payback and be there for them at their last day. That's why we would do it. But let me also straighten it up at this stage, is that, we also are very conscious that we would not allow family members just to come in. We would first view to ensure that the deceased is in a state whereby the family would not be too distraught. We do. So we also make sure that takes place as well. So this is the reason why it's important. The prayer is very simple, just like any other prayer you do in any religion. It's 4 parts to it. The first part is, you're praising the Almighty as you would do in any religion. For us, the second part is we give salutations to our Prophet, peace be upon him. The third part is while you are here to make sure that you make a prayer for the deceased, and the prayer would be very simple. Almighty, forgive our mother or our father. Please make sure that all our stages between now and the day of judgment is one of peace and tranquility. Please save us from any hardships in the grave. So that's the main prayer we would do. And on the fourth part, you can also make a prayer for the whole of humanity. That completes the prayer. Is it any different from any other religion? It's the same. So I think we should comment. And then after that, we just take them for the burial. We don't bury anybody in a coffin. We bury people in a shroud. Why do we bury people in a shroud? Very simple. Because we believe that a person has been created from earth. Let them be reunited from what they've been buried from, created from. That's the main reason. And if you look at our cemetery, all our graves actually have a hump. It's not a flat grave. So why do we have a? Because we have been told that do not step on a human being's grave. And our Prophet, peace be upon him, told us that make sure your grave resembles the hump of a camel, so that you know somebody's buried there. See how much respect we give to a human being. That gives us the lesson that can you imagine that if you give so much respect to a person who's passed away, whilst we are alive, how much respect do we give each other? If I say something bad to you, you will hold it against me. We talk about people behind their backs. We do not forgive people. And then we complain, oh, there is no unity in our community, no unity in our family. How can there be when we do not even respect each other? So we use that as an example. And all our graves in our cemetery are identical. There's no difference. It's big tombstone. Everything is the same. And I would encourage all of you to come and have a look at it. Whoever is even listening to this, please come and have a look, because you'll give an identity. Because in our religion, contrary to what people will be thinking, every grave is identical, because we believe that everyone is the same in the eyes of the God, the eyes of the Almighty. The only thing which distinguishes one from the other is our deeds. And that's what we do. Once we inter the person into the grave, we put 3 handfuls of earth. You would say earth to earth, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. We would say you were created from earth. When you die, you go back into earth. And from this same earth, you'll be resurrected. That is very much similarity. So what we try and do at that stage is we try and give as much comfort to the families to say that, listen, I'm very sorry you're going through this thing. And it has been made compulsory that if a Muslim brother or sister passes away, and if you are aware of it, you should be there for their final prayer. Because if nobody goes, then the whole community is responsible. If a few of us go, that's been done. So you can imagine that one right of a Muslim or another is to attend the funeral. That is why you'll see from a Muslim perspective, our funerals tend to be very large, because this is the concept they do, because they're sort of rewarded, and that's what we do. We also believe that bereavement is a very important part of it, but unlike others, where our bereavement process is only for 3 days. So we only believe that you should mourn for 3 days. After that, you should go back to normality, because that is the concept of life and death, really. The other reason why we always tell people to do quickly is because of the fact that bereavement really does not start for a Muslim family until the person has been laid to rest. That is why if somebody dies in my family, I would give them the condolence. I'm very sorry to hear you've lost your loved one, but can you tell me when the burial is taking place? Because that's how important it is. And I'm sure that you are from a background as well, just like me. It's not being racist or anything like that. Our culture is that when somebody passes away, the whole community comes to see us, or all the family members come to our house, and they're expected to be there with us until the person is buried. So the family is really expected to look after everybody who comes there, and really becomes a burden. So also sometimes we believe, it doesn't happen here, but obviously I know for a fact that in Africa where I was there, if something happens to me or anybody passes away, the whole community comes back and comes to your house, and you are expected. So therefore, for us, really the grieving process and the whole process of mourning really starts as soon as we bury somebody, because that's an obligation which is taken away. So I think this is some of the aspects we would want to tell people. And that's what we try and train them to say, that this is what is required, so that when you are providing a service to patients, that, they are aware of it. Like if from a Muslim patient, make sure that, they're always worried about cleanliness. So if you have some ablution, if it's a month of fasting, give them additional scope to do so. If wherever possible, there should be single-sex ward, because that's what they would like to do so. So all these elements of it, somebody dies, what you need to do. So this is what we're trying to give knowledge to the people who are providing this service so that they can even improve on it. I always believe that no professional would want to give a service which is inadequate. Sometimes they are not able to because they do not have the knowledge. And that's why I'm saying all we're trying to do is enhance the knowledge so they can give even a better service to the patients and the deceased and their family.
Like you said, knowledge is power. So this is quite useful knowledge to know. But also, like you said, we've also got to balance the knowledge of what we have with the legal system as well, of what's required once a person passes away. So tell us how postmortem CT, for example, can help essentially try to find a balance between the two.
For us, a CT scan is really something which we believe is absolutely necessary. For us, because if you for a family, if you tell them that we're going to go through a postmortem, we're going to cut open your mother or your father, they would not accept it at all. So therefore, we have always said that if you can determine, and we know that as the new technologies are such that a CT scan will be more than likely able to give you a cause of death. So therefore, we believe that why is it not being offered as a default position so that anybody who's given a CT scan, if you are able to determine the cause of death, at least that way you're not really interfering with the body, and that will stay well with the families because they know nothing is being touched. We also recognize that, like in any other system, even if it's a CT scan, there is a slight percentage that you may not get the results you need. And therefore, but at least by that, you're also limiting the number, the incisions you would need to do for an invasive, right? So that's why we are saying that this element of scan is so important to faith communities, but also to families who simply did not wish their loved ones to be cut open, right? And, it becomes very difficult for us as well, because sometimes family members are there to wash the body and dress the body. Can you imagine if they see a massive scar? Can you imagine if they're all stitches? For them, it's something which is extremely traumatic. And we believe that a CT scan is, with this new technology going through, why do we just not use CT scans? It is also one way. Can we just imagine that it is one way whereby everybody is now saying one of the reasons for the delays in postmortem is because you do not have enough pathologists. Well, really, one of the solutions would be then why don't we do all the scans? A radiologist is just as qualified, and you just need somebody else just to double check to make sure that the cause of death is correct. So we believe very much that should be that. And what really, and I won't say annoys us, but what really is very distressing for us is that nearly about 8 or 9 years ago, the NHS actually did a pilot scheme in Leicester, whereby every person who required the postmortem would automatically have a CT scan. And if there was no conclusion, they would then do a limited invasive postmortem. It was very successful, and it was supposed to be rolled out, but the NHS said it was too expensive to do so. We are now going back again to places whereby even in Preston and other areas, whereby they have now started again to give everybody a CT scan in the first instance. And this is what we believe should be standardized in every part of the country, whereby where there's a person who requires postmortems, let them go through a CT scan first. We believe it will be cheaper option than having to go through a proper invasive postmortem. And also it might help in terms of trying to ensure that there is trying to mitigate the shortages of pathologists. And where scans are very important and it's still not being utilized as much as it should be, would be in children. There is an absolute shortage of pediatric pathologists, and it's a result. Some of the children postmortems are delayed beyond what we can say is acceptable. And from a Muslim perspective, a child is very likely to decompose very easily, and we do not believe it's found in the body. And therefore, you can imagine that if a child's postmortem is delayed by a week or 2 weeks, can you imagine the consequences that when it's released, that they may have been completely decomposed, or that the features would have changed so substantially because of the preservation. So this is why we believe that a CT scan is definitely an area whereby they can even look at, for even children, we also understand that a CT scan may not be as conclusive for a child as it is for an adult. So we have always said that why not use an MRI for children, which Neville Severe had done a lot of research from Gosh, and they have said that, it can be done. So we are absolutely advocating that every hospital have got scan facilities, and they have downtime. So why do they not use those facilities? This is why we are advocating, and we have been advocating for a number of years, that every coronial office should have access to scan facilities. We are extremely sad that in London, being the biggest city, coroners have only got one dedicated facility, which is in Oxford under the Professor Roberts, and all the others have just now come on, but it's also ad hoc. There's nothing which is permanent. The only one which is going to come online will be from East London in Walthamstow, but that will only be in June or so. So we can't understand that if in a country like in London, we are not able to, but in other parts, even in Leicester, even up north in Yorkshire, hospitals are providing their facilities. And we have done an experiment. We have done a facility now at Barkinghaven Redbridge Trust, whereby they are offering 2 days using the same scanning facilities they have at a downtime where they're not utilizing for coronial CT scans. It can be done. Yeah, where there is a will, there is a way, I always say. Right? And you've done it, sir. And I know Anubix have done that very successfully in Bedford and other areas. So there is a way to do it. And I believe that even if you go to Newcastle, they will tell you that they've started using scanning facilities, and it's proven to them that in the long run, it's much efficient service and it provides the needs of the families. We keep on saying that we should always place the bereaved family at the center of everything. Yet when it comes to practicalities, we do not apply that. So why do we emphasize on bereaved families, and yet at the same time, from a practical perspective, we are not providing that service?
You've accomplished so much, and it's clear to hear when we're speaking to you the passion that you have for your community and helping those. It's probably a difficult question, but what would say is your proudest achievement to date?
Our proudest achievement would be not me, but the whole trust for this, is that we are able to bury our loved ones in a manner which is in accordance with our religious requirements. And we are able to provide a service whereby we are able to make sure that families have that satisfaction to say that they have left their loved ones in a better place. Our ethos at GardensOfPeace was very simple. When a bereaved family comes through the gates, so much grief, they've lost their loved ones. When they leave from the cemetery, if they do not get a bit of comfort to say, I've left my mother in a better place, then we have failed. Because our aim is to see how can we comfort a bereaved family. And that is why it is our proudest moment. And secondly, from a selfish perspective, when we started this project, it's very simple. We started this project because we said we are first generation people, first generation in this country. We are British. When we die, we don't want to be repatriated from where we came from. We need a facility whereby I can be buried in the manner which has been stated by our religious requirements. So that is how we started, on a selfish basis, to say, well, if I die, I don't want to be buried inadequately. I want to be buried in accordance. So that is how the concept started. And we made sure that everything has been done. And what we really am very proud of as well, not me, but the entire team, what we are really, really very proud of is the fact that our work has really had an impact on all the stakeholders, like coroners, like registrars, like hospitals. Every one of them have been receptive to what our requests have been. Although not 100% fully met, but they have been receptive and they've made changes. We are now able to have out-of-hours service for registrars. Even if it's a weekend, we can do so. We're now having cemeteries who are providing proper facilities. We're having coroners who are also now understanding and providing scans. So this element of our work, which we've been trying to do, has really brought a lot of fruition. And lastly, but most importantly, what we are really very, very proud of, and not only us, but the entire Muslim community, is during the pandemic, we all got together to ensure that we worked tirelessly so that our loved ones were buried as quickly as possible. And I would like to, at this particular juncture, to thank everybody in the entire system that had you not played ball with us, we would have had a catastrophe whereby mortuaries would have been overspilling with bodies or not being able to bury. The Jewish community, the Muslim community, and any other families, we made sure that we buried people as quickly as possible so that to ensure that there was no backlog, but at the same time, we were trying to give families that closure that even though it's a pandemic, we're trying to bury your loved ones as quickly as possible. That it was being, and just to give you an example, for 2 years, the 2 years of the pandemic, from March 2020 to March 2022, our cemetery, regrettably, had to handle just a shade under 4,000 people we had to bury. That gives you the impact. And what we always, and one of the things which really did highlight to us, and the studies have shown to us, is that wherever there is a deprived area, there is so much health inequalities. And that is something which we are trying to address. And this is why, unfortunately, during the pandemic, the BAE community were more adversely affected by COVID and its and the consequences of it than any other community would have done so. So therefore, our proudest moment was to say, we are serving the community. It's not for us, but we are providing a service to them. And lastly, but most importantly, my message to everybody is concerned. Faith plays a very important part in this life. And if you ever want to know and understand, ask families who have lost their loved ones during that COVID period, who gave them strength. Had it not been for the faith people, none of these people, majority of them, would not have been able to cope. Because when you cannot even hold the hand of your loved one and not even see them, not even attend the funeral, who would they turn to? Had it not been for faith communities, it would have been extremely difficult.
Just for the final question, I mean, at the beginning of the discussion, you alluded to the expansion of Gardens of Peace. From your CV, it's clear to see that you're an incredibly busy man. Just to share with our viewers, really, what's next on the horizon for you? Do you have any big projects that you're working on? Or is there any area you're going to spend more of your energy focusing on?
Yeah, I think that more energy will be spent on trying to highlight that there is certainly a greater need for the whole councils and the government to think about burial space going forward. It's at a premium. It's becoming acute. And therefore, we believe that, we want to leave a legacy behind to say that, future generations can say that, no, our generations, our forefathers provided us with a burial space. We don't need to worry about it. So we want to really make sure that we tell people concerned that please plan for burials as well. Unfortunately, we sometimes tend to think and plan so much for people who are living and nothing for the people who have passed away. Yet it's not right, because those people who passed away have also contributed everything to society. They've also paid the taxes. So why do they not be looked after that? So my energies for however long I have to live would be to ensure that this area about burial space, bereavement of families, how do you cope with families who are going through this trauma? How do you support them? And just to make people understand even better that let's make a provision here. In this day and age of technology and everything like that, let us try and lessen the burden on bereaved families so that we can process paperwork as quickly as possible so that they have got a short window by which time they can at least make sure that their loved ones are buried and then can continue to do the grieving process. So for me, how can I help bereaved children and siblings? How can they cope with it? I'm not sure whether you are too young, both of you. You're not as old as I am. But I tend to remember that whenever we ever had a bereavement in our families, always turn back to our places of worship, to the imams and everybody else, to help us cope with the grief. Things have changed now. Our faith is not as strong as it was before. We now need that element of an additional support. And that is why You find so many bereavement support services and counseling coming up because people now will have to find ways of trying to deal with the grief. It's no longer that if something happens to you, you go to Aunt Mary or Aunt Aisha and they discuss and they resolve the issue. We now have to go to somebody else to do so. So I think this new element is we have to recognize. And what also we have to recognize is that how do we save young people who are going on the wrong path or trying to take their own lives? What pressures are they coming under? How can we save them? And how can we stop knife crime? Because we see from the and people who are 16-year-old, 17-year-old, who's been a victim of knife crime, they have gone, but their family is living a life of real pain. How do we stop that young people trying to do that? This is something which I would really want to focus my energy to say that I don't want my grandchildren to grow up in an environment whereby they are always scared of gang culture, of knife crime, of trying to have so much pressures on them that they're thinking of suicide. I want to make sure that every person in this life has a chance and feels safe, that they can live a normal life. That's what be my priority.
Cool. Before we like to wrap things off here, but we want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing things from us. We hope that our listeners have learned a lot from this discussion. Specifically, they've learned about how important post-mortem CT can be for a very community, a very, very big community in the United Kingdom, and also internationally as well. So we'd like to thank you so much for sharing that perspective with us. We've learned a lot from this discussion, and to our listeners, we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.